Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I am talking about Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. And this edition is from Pocketbooks, which is Simon & Schuster. I'm not sure this is old enough to be considered a retro review. Came out in, let's find out together. This says 2014. So, there you go. This is the first Bill Hodges book of the Bill Hodges trilogy. And we start off with a bunch of people waiting outside of this auditorium for a big job fair. They've been waiting all night, and as the sun's coming up, an old big tank of a Mercedes just tears through the crowd, kills and injures a bunch of people. Then we cut to Bill Hodges, retired police detective. Spends his days watching shitty TV, like courtroom shows, not dramas, but, like the Judge Judy type of shows, and Jerry Springer type of shows, and contemplating suicide. And then one day he receives a letter that says it's from Mr. Mercedes. And sort of bragging about never being caught and this and that and everything. And so he decides, instead of taking it to his ex-partner, who's still on the force, he decides to look into it himself, and we get 500 plus pages of Mr. Mercedes. I want to jump right to something, but I have to hold off. I'm a little overexcited about it. But anyway, excuse me just a moment. I am so professional. So this is, as far as the writing goes, it's typical Stephen King. If you're at all familiar with his work, within a few pages, if you didn't know it was his, you'd read a few pages and be like, oh, this is Stephen King. The way he turns a phrase, the way characters speak, the way he describes things. So if you like Stephen King's writing style, you're going to have no problem with this. If you're not a fan of his style, well, I don't know what to tell you. So we don't know at first, of course, who Mr. Mercedes is. We meet Bill Hodges. We meet some other characters at the beginning in the cold open, as I like to say. Just some people waiting in line at this job fair. And doesn't matter how well we get to know them, because they're not going to be around for long. But it will make us care, I suppose, about their deaths. Then we meet Bill Hodges, as I said, retired detective. Was on the force for a long time. Plenty of decorations when he was on the force, but the Mr. Mercedes case, which isn't what they actually call it. I think Bill Hodges starts calling him Mr. Mercedes. That's one case, one of the few cases he never solved. And he is at that point, he's retired, he's divorced, his daughter lives across the country, so he's basically alone. His only friend is the young African-American who mows his lawn, does his lawn business. And so he's put on a bunch of weight. He's watching crappy TV, contemplating suicide. And then this letter shows up. And there are just certain things in the letter that make him believe it actually is from Mr. Mercedes. And he knows he should give it to his partner, but it's sort of the first glimmer of life that he's had since his retirement. So he holds on to it and starts his own little investigation. And he keeps telling himself, I'm gonna do this, and then I'll give the information to Pete, his partner. Pete Huntley, I believe. But as he gets deeper and deeper into it, the less he wants to give it to his partner, ex-partner. And then we meet a bunch of other characters. We meet the killer. We learn relatively early on, who the killer is. So there's a lot of chapters from the killer's point of view. And he is not a good person. I mean, aside from being a killer, racist, misogynistic, just an all-around shitty person. Which, I mean, he's a murderer. So, and he's now planning something else. Something big. He's messing with the cop, and he wants to take out a whole bunch of people. Because, you know, humans suck, according to him. And then, again, we meet more characters, and eventually we are introduced to my favorite Stephen King character, Holly Gibney. So, some stuff happens. I feel like I'm giving a lot of details. I mean, I'm not giving a lot, but more than normal, maybe, in my reviews. But anyway, something happens. Bill Hodges meets a woman. Her mother has a stroke, and so some relatives come up or over. Not sure where this actually takes place, but she has an aunt, and her aunt's daughter are coming from Cincinnati, and the daughter is Holly Gibney, who is 45, but seems very childlike. She has problems. She's on medication. She's been institutionalized twice, but there's something about the character who I was introduced to in a completely different book, and it was reading that book. I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to spoil. Like, if you haven't read that book yet, I don't want to spoil the fact that Holly Gibney's in it. So I'm not going to say what the book is, but I read it. I was introduced to this character and immediately went and bought the 3 Bill Hodges books. So I love the character so much. And she is in If It Bleeds, the 4-novella book that came out last year, the year before. That's not a spoiler because one of the novellas is a Holly Gibney story. But I absolutely love this character. She can be annoying. She's weird, which is what I like about her. Not the annoying part, but the weird part. And she's broken, and she ends up helping. Jerome is the horrible what I'm doing. Just sentence fragments. Jerome is the young African-American man who helps keep Bill's lawn. And he's 17, still in high school. Incredibly smart. On his way to Harvard or Yale when he graduates from high school. And Mr. Mercedes, I'm not going to say who it is very racist. And the way whenever he thinks or talks about Jerome, horrible. Which is why I mentioned that the fact that he's an African American, because that's part of Mr. Mercedes' issues. But Jerome and Holly end up helping Bill Hodges in his investigation. As much as he warns them, they can get in trouble because it gets to the point where he's like, once I turn everything over to my ex-partner, I'm screwed. I have gone above and beyond what anybody should do, and I'm in trouble. He doesn't want Jerome and Holly to get in trouble, but they're like, no, we're going to help you. We're going to see this through. And I like the dynamics between the three of them. I flew through it. I got into it. I really liked it. I love Holly Gibney. I gave it 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. It's, not so much a mystery because, again, we find out pretty early on who Mr. Mercedes is, but we are following Bill Hodges as he tries to figure out who Mr. Mercedes is. And we have that thing where we know what Mr. Mercedes is planning. We know what Bill Hodges thinks. And we know whether or not those things are going to line up. If that makes sense. Like, for example, and I'm just going to make this up, Bill Hodges, he's analyzed all the evidence that he has, and he assumes that Mr. Mercedes is going to Burger King for lunch on Thursday at noon. But we know, because we're also following the killer, that he has decided he saw something at the Burger King that annoyed him, and so he's not going to give them his patronage anymore. He's going to Wendy's. And so we're kind of, as we're going along, it's like, we know he's changed his plans. He's going to Wendy's instead of Burger King. Is Bill going to figure it out in time? Is Bill going to know it before noon on Thursday? Is that the day I said? Is he going to figure it out by then? Will he know that he needs to not go to Burger King but go to Wendy's? Or is he going to end up going to Burger King and shit's going to go down at Wendy's because he wasn't there? That's the kind of storytelling we have. Does any of that make sense? And I like that. I like that we have both perspectives, and we don't know if they're going to line up. So, as I said, I gave it 5 out of 5. It gets extra points because this is the book that introduces us to Holly Gibney. I was talking to somebody. They said they found her character annoying, and I can easily see that. Maybe it's because I've already read 2 other things that she's in, and so I already had built up my love for Holly Gibney, so I didn't find her that annoying. There were a few things, and I'm like, she's pushing it a little bit, but her character has progressed. So in the things I read, she'd already moved beyond a lot of the things that are happening in this book. So yeah, just like if this were, it's a great book, I think. Some problematic stuff with race, but if I were going to give it 4 or 4.5, Holly Gibney just automatically from that point makes it a 5. I mean, if it was terrible, I was only going to give it a 1 star. She'd probably maybe raise it up to 2, but so that's all I'm saying. Love Holly Gibney. So there you have it. That's Mr. Mercedes. I think I've covered everything that I want to cover. I don't want to give anything away. I've already talked about this a lot. Twists and turns, suspenseful, great. I mean, it's great Stephen King writing. I think great characters, if some of them might be a little problematic. There is something in here. I don't want to tell you what it is. But again, the person I was talking to felt that it's a Stephen King trope. This person said they were tired of seeing this happen so often in Stephen King stuff. And there's a huge chunk missing from my Stephen King reading, so I didn't notice it as a trope. I didn't know that this is apparently something that happens a lot in his books. As always, we can talk spoilers in the comments if you want to know, if you want any of this stuff filled in. But 5 out of 5 for me, for Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. It's weird reviewing Stephen King because I think the Stephen King fans are just going to pick his stuff up. If you're not a fan, you're probably not going to pick it up. Maybe I've persuaded you to give this one a try because he can be hit and miss. Yeah, so that's it. Let's go with a very simple question that I don't think I've asked before. I think I've only reviewed 1 Stephen King book before this. So, are you a fan of Stephen King? If so, what's your favorite Stephen King? I'm going to say story. I'm not going to limit it to just books. And for me, it's a relatively simple answer, which is The Mist. I absolutely love that story. It freaked me out when I read it the first time. I may or may not have told this story before, but I was at home in my bedroom, sitting on the floor for whatever reason, with my back to the bed, and the only window in the room was behind me, and I was completely immersed in reading The Mist. And my mother called from downstairs. I put the book down, I went downstairs. Mom asked me to take the dog out for a walk. And my initial reaction was, are you crazy? I'm not going outside. That's insane. And then I looked out the window and it was a beautiful day. But I was so immersed in the story of The Mist that for that split second, I thought the idea of going outside was insanity. Yes, I love that story. Close second, Survivor type. At the time I read that, blew me away. Excuse me. So that's it. That's going to be my answer. I'm going to keep it simple. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. As I said, comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is EricSmith5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. That's all I've got for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.